privilege to introduce Andrew, who I met a few years ago at a Moodle conference here in Hong Kong. And he's highly experienced in the use of Moodle, especially in a school environment. And he will tell you more about himself. But thank you very much, Andrew, for being with us today.
Yep, great. And hello, everyone. What I wanted to do today was just give a rundown of how we use Moodle at the American International School of Hong Kong. So my name's Andrew, and I'm currently the Educational Technology Coordinator, looking at education technology all the way from early childhood through to grade 12. I'll give a small background of the school. This is a picture of our grade 5s, and so we've got a Chromebook program going in grade 3 to grade 5, so they're all getting used to using these devices already. But these students in August will then be in grade 6, and they'll be ready to start using Moodle. We use Moodle from grade 6 all the way up to grade 12. And it's sort of every course has a landing page in Moodle from grade 6 to grade 12. And so I've been at the school this is my 7th year, and I've really seen Moodle grow, our use of Moodle grow. When I first came in, it was definitely just a tool available for teachers to use, and now it is something that, in high school we do all of our grades are through Moodle. Every course has a page. Pretty much every teacher logs into Moodle every day, or at least once or twice a week to get certain things through on the Moodle course. So this is a typical view of our statistics. We have 86 active Moodle courses, 491 users that are active. That's the logs. Pretty typical for us. You can see that was last week. The dip is Saturday, Sunday. Actually, Monday was quite low for some reason, but normally get about 1,200 logins every day, depending. So what I want to do is just take you through what we've been doing with Moodle, and share what some of the teachers have said are their highlights. So one of the first things I often share, or am asked to share about when people see our Moodle, is the things that we've done to think through and make it simple for the user. So we've got a theme called the Snap theme, and it was developed by Moodle Rooms, who host our Moodle, and it really focuses on making everything simple, easy to navigate, and focusing on that one task that you're doing at hand. And I'll show you some examples of this now. So that was the login screen behind the title there. And when students log in, they get to their personalized homepage, and they've got their calendar there and their courses. And they've also got a little menu button up the top. So the calendar is quite useful because it's personalized. It actually, if you hover over it, it will tell you what's due, and you can click straight into that. And that's in all Moodle themes now, I believe. But you can, it helps to drive the users and focus them in on what's really relevant to them, maybe on the day or on that week. So it gives a good overview. Another feature is that menu button at the top. So with the Snap theme, you've got that simple menu button up the top, and when you click that, it opens up your sort of dashboard of all your courses. And with this gives you a good example. So each course is a card here, and clicking on that would take you to the course, but on this page you've actually got a little bit of summary data, like you've got some feedback available, or how you're progressing if completion tracking is turned on. If you have some assignments that were due or graded, it would come up in there too, and it's sorted by alphabetical, but also by the ones that are visible first. So if you're a teacher, you might have a couple of drafts in the back. Those would come down the bottom of the list. So the next slide just shows the bottom of the list. At the bottom, it also shows you things like upcoming deadlines, any recent feedbacks, a link to grades, and any alerts from messages and notifications. So that menu button is definitely one of the most used buttons. And I wanted to contrast. This is what our theme would, this is what our front screen would look like if it were in the more or the clean theme. So this is the more theme, it's a pretty standard Moodle theme. So compare that to, if I can find the first page again, this. So this one is really decluttered. We really wanted to think through and apply that concept that, when students come up to Moodle, they're not necessarily looking for, say, announcements or anything like that. They've got a task in hand. They're trying to get somewhere. We're trying to get rid of the distractions and make that navigation easy. So this a lot better for our purposes than something like that, where you've got doubled up links, my courses. You've got navigation that you can possibly get lost in, announcements and things. And I know a number of schools try to, they say, how do we get our announcements out to our students? And maybe we can throw it on the front page and then they'll see it. I feel like that's sort of not a very strong solution to a bigger problem. So we like to keep ours simple to use. Yeah. Any questions or anything before I move on? Are we all good? Feel free to type them into the chat as we go along. This is a course page, a simple course page. This is actually one of Susan Holt's pages. She just presented just before this about how she uses the gradebook. The theme, what it does is the links become, so any resources show up like this, things that they can click on. So it's all completely adaptable. If you are on your phone or if you're on your iPad, one of the reasons why the links are so big is because, on the iPad, you're clicking it with your finger and you don't have any issues with clicking into it. If you scroll down to, I should just go back. These up here, so it automatically lists your topics up here, and you're seeing one topic at a time. So this one, we're looking at introduction. And what I really like about the design is it really drives teachers to think about and make their design their course to be simple, bite-sized. So here's one topic. So you might have one or two resources up the top, and then you might have a couple of assignments down below, and it stops teachers from creating too many links where what we find is then students get lost. And I remember that my first year using Moodle here, I would spend half the time in my class, and I was lucky because I was there in the room teaching computer science in a computer lab, and I'd spend half the time going, no, it's that one that we're on, the third link, and people were getting lost in what we used to call the scroll of death and the click and wait. And with this kind of a layout, it really helps the teacher to design that better, so it guides a fairly good design. Yeah. So I'll move on to a couple of things that we've done centrally. So we've kind of hacked Moodle to help us with some of our workflows here. And one of the things we've done is our attendance. So taking you on our tour, a typical day, students show up to class, and what we want to do is, as a teacher, take attendance centrally in each class. But we want to also have that centrally available for anybody to look up whether a student's absent or not. And so how we've done that is we've put together just skip that slide here. We've put together a Moodle course, and in that course we're using the attendance plugin, and we make an attendance assignment for each of the 7 blocks in our high school. So we have 7 blocks through the week, and they repeat. So in any one block, that's where students are all in one set of classes. So if it was our, say our Monday or our day A, the first class would be block 1. So a teacher would come into attendance block 1, and they would then see pre-populated there already all of the attendances that are relevant to them. So you see up the top here, you can filter it by day or week. So most teachers will have it on the week setting. And you can see, so it's Monday, you'd click in on there, and then you'd be taking your attendance. And how you take your attendance, what we've done is we've used groupings so that each student is in one of these classes. So the teacher comes in, they choose from the groups there, and they choose the class, for example, English 1C, and then you have a list of your students, and you can just take the attendance. Of course, if you click on all participants, then you've got all of the participants' data there for that block as well. So you can see very quickly whether kids were absent or not centrally. But we use the grouping so that you have a list here of only the relevant classes in that block. And so for block 2, it would be a different list of different set of groups. And how that's done is we just upload the students into this course through Moodle, through user uploads, and we put them into those different groups and groupings. And that's what we do. For that, there's an example of the groupings. So if are you familiar with groupings? I don't know if I have to explain that, but it allows you to put a set of groups together into one grouping. So block 1 consists of all of these groups, and the students might be in a number of groups, but within block 1 they should only be in one of these groups, and that should be their class that they're in at that time. And then so block 2, it's a different number of groups, and that's how we get the filtering down. So once we had that data in, we saw that we could grow into other, solving other problems that we do as a whole school as well. So learning attitudes is one thing that we grew into doing more so. So traditionally we had, as a teacher you would grade and those would come out on the report, but we realized that also with the grading, once that came into Moodle, we started having more discussions about grades. And we really started to see that we wanted to separate behaviors from learning achievement. So behaviors are those things such as, you're late to class or haven't shown up, or maybe you just haven't handed in the work. So those things you shouldn't get deducted from your learning achievement, your grade that's supposed to show how much you've achieved. So where do we put them? So what we tried to do is separate out those behaviors from your traditional learning achievement grades. And Moodle's helped with that. So we developed a rubric, and it was great. But once all the teachers in high school, so I should just backtrack a second. About 3 years ago, we made it possible for any teachers who wanted to use the Moodle Gradebook to have their grades automatically transferred to our reporting system. So that was a sort of a bit of a sweetener to move over to Moodle. And then about 2 years ago, what happened was we had enough adopters and enough people were on Moodle and starting to use the gradebook that we could say that across, we made it just a policy that across our high school, we put everything into the Moodle gradebook. So all grades come through there. And that allowed us to have a common conversation about grading and what we're doing and to see each other's and everything like that. And out of that came this conversation about our attitudes for learning. And that's how we've developed these different behaviors teased out of and away from your standards achievement. So you have standards achievement on one side, and then you have attitudes for learning as another assessment. And what we do with that is we developed a rubric, and this was it was amazing how this came about. There was an ad hoc committee, a lot of great conversation. We came up with this final rubric, but because we were already doing Moodle attendance in Moodle, these, the first bits, which were punctuality and attendance, we wanted to give students and parents some feedback on how they were doing there. Well, those automatically come from Moodle. So if we're taking attendance on Moodle, 2 parts of the rubric are already filled out. And then the remaining parts of the rubric, what we could do, because we had all the students in that one class already, we could then just create a rubric in an assignment and allow teachers to fill that out. So we've done a very similar thing where there's an assignment for each of the block levels. So if I was teaching a particular class, say Art 1C in block 1, I would come to block 1, I would choose Art 1C, and I would have all of my students listed there. I could then go through and grade it just like a normal Moodle assignment, and this is the rubric that is just converted straight from our paper or that planned rubric that we had originally. So that's how we do our attitudes for learning. So I was just wondering if anybody has used Moodle for those kind of things, or if you actually separate your achievements from your attitudes or behaviors, and if there are any ideas that I can grab from you guys. All okay so far? No problem. I'll just continue on. The next slide is just so after we've entered all of these rubrics, what happens is you've got the gradebook in Moodle, and you can see, so there's your learning attitudes, you know, that rubric, it'll come out as a grade here, and your attendance, so it fills in the other two parts of the rubric here, and it comes out with a pretty bog standard grade point sort of system like we have in the American system. So then for each of the 7 blocks, then we have this, you know, so 3.97, 3.48, those are block 1 and block 2, all the way to block 7, and that'll come out with your average, that calculates your average grade point for your learning attitudes. So in our report, that's a small copy of our report on the side there, that's what we give to our students every trimester, and if you zoom into each of the subject lines, you'll see that we've got a grade for their learning achievement. So this really should be how well they've achieved against the learning outcomes and standards. And then they've also got in blue there the learning attitude. So that comes straight from that rubric that I was just showing you and Moodle. And that's how it comes out into our report. And then at the bottom of the report, you've got that summary. And again, you've got that divided down to your attitudes for learning and your standards-based sort of achievement there. Great. Any questions, feel free to ask. We'll move on. So continuing on with our tour of how we use Moodle every day, I asked some teachers to give us, to provide me with some highlights that they'd done, you know, that they'd seen throughout the year. And so these are some of the things that were, you know, that the teachers said, hey, this has been really good this year. So this, the first one, this group here, I don't know if you can see, she's got a little map up on her screen behind the title there. This is actually a grade 9 world history class and humanities class, and what they've done is they've got, this is a very typical picture from inside their classroom. They've got this simulation of World War I going on, and they've all been given countries and groups, so they're all governing one particular country. It's a fictitious map, but it closely resembles Europe. And you know, it's always a buzz in there. It's amazing what they're doing. And in this particular session, they were actually putting armies, very similar to the board game Risk, putting armies on their different territories because things were getting tense and war was sort of inevitable. And so in line with how this class works, you know, there's so much going on and so much that requires sort of peer feedback and you seeing what the others are doing. What this teacher said was his highlight was using the workshop for peer grading. So peer grading, if you haven't seen the workshop activity in Moodle, it allows you to do some peer grading really easily. So this was one of their tasks. How will you govern Chindika? So there's a map, obviously very closely resembling Africa, what was called Chindika in the simulation, and they were all dividing it up, and they had to they had to make a video to persuade people that they were the right country to govern Chindika. So the assignment here was to make a video, and the teacher used the workshop activity to allow peer assessment and to exhibit it to peers. So what happens in a workshop activity? First, the teacher, the instructor, will set it up with a particular assessment form and their instructions. Then they put it into the submission phase. In the submission phase, when a student clicks in on there, they can submit their assignment. So in this case, they would have submitted a link to either their portfolio or their video on YouTube. The instructor here also has a number of options of how the peer grading will work. So whether it's 3 or 4 and who grades who's, that sort of thing. You can make it. You can have it randomly set or set it manually. Then once that's ready, so in this particular example, it was February 1st was when the submission phase was finished, and it moved into the assessment phase, and that was done by the 3rd of February. So when it was in the assessment phase, when students came into the workshop activity, they wouldn't see a place to submit anymore. They would see the work that they were assigned to assess. So then they would watch the other students' videos, and then they would assess those. And after that, then it came into the grade evaluation phase where all those grades sort of came in and made sense. So what that looks like in terms of grades, so one student's work would come in, and that's their submission, and there may be 2, 3, 4 students that would look at it, and they would get a grade from it. The other thing that the workshop activity does is actually it grades them on their assessing as well. So how that works is, so these particular students graded this person's assignment, and they were, and then she's been given a grade of how well she's assessed her peers there, and that's worked basically on how closely they're grading with the other peer groups, or with the other peers in their group. So it's an interesting one, and it allows you to, it really helps to facilitate that whole peer assessment. Without something like this, what would happen is, you know, a teacher's workflow becomes a much bigger process. You've got to collect in all the assignments, then you've got to give out all the assignments in some way, to make sure it's all fair, and then you've got to bring all the grades back in, and you've got to do some calculations to aggregate them all up, and then you can give back the students' grades. This way, Moodle helps enable this teacher to provide these pretty quickly and efficiently, all in one place. And so he did probably about 6 or 7 workshops throughout the year. Here's another example, and this is bonus points. Bonus points, this is grade 6, and this teacher wanted to, they have a number of, this is English in grade 6, they have a number of vocab tests and homework exercises through the year, but she wanted to offer a channel to challenge and you know, allow extension for those students that you know, were meeting the mark. And so this is an example where this student's gotten 12 out of 12, but she's always adding a bonus question or 2 for them. So she wants that bonus question to be worth something. In itself, it already is a motivator, but wouldn't it be great if that could also come out in the wash, you know, add to maybe somewhere that they've missed. So how can you do that with a Moodle gradebook? And so what we did in the end, so this is the teacher grading. I might just skip to the next slide first. What we did was in the gradebook, we had the different sections of the gradebook. So she's got 40% of these classwork and daily assignments, and there's a whole load that I've cut off as well. Then there's 30% of these tests and quizzes. She's got a whole load there. And she's got essays and projects, which are worth 30%, which all makes 100%. Then she's got this extra bonus points section or category in her gradebook, and these are actually extra credit. So this 200 points does not add up, or is not part of that 742, but any points that come in here do add into that. And so what she's doing is she's adding in bonus points whenever people get them into these areas here, and they will therefore boost up their grades, or you know, they'll add into that course total. And so when the teacher's entering it, she's entering, so that particular vocabulary quiz, she'll enter it into the gradebook here. But then if they're getting a bonus mark, she might be entering it over here too. That extra bonus point. Yeah. Any questions about that? Anybody come across, you know, bonus points? There's a number of ways to do it, and we're always talking about improving this because, you know, when people talk about bonus points or extra credit, they have different or varying ideas, and yeah, this is one way to do it, I guess. I'll move on. So this is a neat little trick with Moodle. So because every course has their Moodle page, and because a lot of our grades and everything, excuse me, are coming through Moodle, whenever teachers find a good tool to use that's not within Moodle, you know, it becomes a bit of a dilemma. As a teacher, can I use it? How do I get that, you know, information back into Moodle? Do I have to type it in manually? Can't it all just be in Moodle? And we are very, you know, we really like to embrace using the best tools out there. And so we don't prohibit using third-party tools. In fact, I would actually actively promote using the best tool for the job. So sometimes we get teachers using, say, Kahoot for interactive quizzes in the classroom. That's really exciting. It's sort of a gamified quiz. Students use their phones as a clicker, so that's Kahoot. and that gives you some statistics at the end as well. Or you might use like Socrative or Edpuzzle. All that sort of stuff is out there. But how do you get, you know, the grades or the progress or some details back from that third party back into your Moodle gradebook? And one thing that I found really solved this is in Moodle now you can paste grades in from a spreadsheet. So if you've got a spreadsheet where you've got an identifying bit of information of your students, so in our case their email address, and you've got grades, you can actually paste that into from a spreadsheet straight back into Moodle, and it'll go into the gradebook. So I'm going to share one really interesting use case. It's not in Moodle, it's a third party, and it's about creating quick quizzes using Google Forms. So if you've ever used Google, has anybody here used Google Forms before, and have you used it to create quizzes? You know what, just to change things up, I might just do a quick poll. You can press yes or no there. So down the bottom you should say yes or no. So if you're using Google Forms, it's very quick and very easy to create, you know, say a quiz or some sort of questionnaire. And that's almost completely opposite to the Moodle quiz, which is a lot more thought out. Great, so that's what I saw. So one thing that you know teachers find difficult is you've got all these quizzes, maybe all the questions, maybe in Word files or past papers or something, and you want to put these into an online quiz now. And if you're going to do that in Moodle, it could take a long time. You're going to retype all the questions, you're going to type in the correct answers, you're going to set the grade settings, you're going to put together a quiz. And that in itself just takes such a long time. And so it sort of scares a lot of teachers away from doing that. So a neat little trick that we've just talked a lot about in the school is using Google Forms and actually using the screenshot tool to take screenshots. So what you can do is you can take screenshots or with your camera, take a picture of the question, gather all those pictures together in one folder. Then you can use Google Forms, and all you're doing is you're inserting the picture in as the question, and then with Google Forms, it's so easy to share out that quiz, and when it comes back in, there's an add-on called Flubaroo, which works on your Google spreadsheet to actually automatically grade those quizzes. So what we did this with an economics, with our AP economics course. We wanted to create a whole load of self-assessment quizzes, so students could pick different topics and go through the self-assessment quiz, which was all based on, say, past questions and all, and then they would get some response automatically to tell them how well they're doing, and they could then, they're empowered to understand whether they were weak in that area, whether they needed help, or whether they thought that they were doing okay. And so how that works is when you look here, so it says question 1, that's the title, but this underneath, this question is actually just a picture, a screenshot from a Word document, from some past papers. These are all screenshots. And then what we've done is we've just added a very quick drop down with A, B, C, D, E, and just title that answer 1. And you can duplicate that for answer 2, for answer 3, etc., etc. So you're putting in the picture, and then you're putting in, or you're just duplicating that same drop down. So very quick, you can create, you know, a 10-question quiz in about 10, 15 minutes very quickly. And we actually have a script that helps that out. So the economics teacher has a whole folder full of all of these screenshots that he just took up in order, and then it automatically, using a little script, just put in the picture, put in that question, picture, question for every single file in that folder. And we were able to create all of these quizzes, about 400 questions of quiz in the space of about a week and a half, a very quick time. Then those go out to the students, and they're able to get them self-graded. And as the grades come in, this is the spreadsheet in the background. So once any student answers, it automatically grades it against the teacher. So I guess I missed that the teacher just goes into the form once beforehand to answer it all correctly, and then Flubaroo, which you can enable on your Google spreadsheets, will take that as the correct answer key. And so when you get some kind of result like this, you've got your students down one side with their total points, and the teacher can see very quickly, okay, answer 5 is something, so that question we need to work on. This student up here obviously got nothing right, so this is a student that needs help. But you can also take, so this green box represents what you would copy and paste, so you would copy that, and you could actually paste that back straight into Moodle. You go into your Moodle grades, and you go import, and you can paste that straight in. Because the username matches up to their email, the next slide, or the next step of this process asks you, right, so usernames, their email, total points, where do you want to put that? You can start a new grade item, or you can overwrite a current grade item that you have there. And then it's in the Moodle Gradebook, ready for them to see and adding up if you want that to add up to all of your other grades. So that's a great way to bring in that third-party tool. If they're, if you're getting analytics, or you're getting some sort of grade off of some quiz elsewhere, so long as you can get the results in some kind of spreadsheet where you've got the students' emails or some identifying feature, and then their grades. If you can pull that out, then you can just paste it back into Moodle. Yeah. I know I went through that quite quickly. Are there any questions about that? Are we okay? Great. Another thing, and I'll whiz very quickly through this, but another thing that we found Moodle to be very useful for are coordinating student choice in a more operational manner. So we have a number of school trips and careers days and field trip days and all of that. And what we do is we allow them to use the choice option. In this one, we're using groupings. So I don't know if you can see that. It says high school grade level groupings. That's a particular grouping. So grouping again is a list of groups. So these groups here are their homeroom groups. And so what we've been able to do there is on that choice, in a careers day, we've got 18 presentations happening. We want the students to be able to choose one of the 18 strands. So they can choose them, but we don't want to overpack the room. So we use the limiting feature within choice, the choice activity in Moodle. So they go in there, and each homeroom group, so if you're in homeroom 2016, so that's our seniors this year, there's 5 spots for them. There's 5 spots for the grade 11s, there's 5 spots for the grade 10s, there's 5 spots for the grade 9s. And how that works is just by using separate groups in the choice the choice activity. They'll go in, there's only a limit of 5 for that one little group. So all the grade 9s are only competing for 5 spots within that one room. So in total, there'll be 20 spots in that room. I don't know if I explained that very well, but it helps us with that kind of coordination. Otherwise, what would happen is probably, we either assign it for them, they have no choice, or we'd give it out as paper, come back, and you'd have to work it out, and inevitably you'd have to be changing people around because you've overfilled one room and another room is empty. We also do some of these. So these are conditional labels. So sometimes students are assigned some sort of field trip or activity, and just by using the conditional access, so within every label or activity in Moodle, you can restrict access. So in this case, this particular label will only show up if the student is in OELP Adventure. So only the kids that are going on the adventure race trip do we put into that group. And then those kids, when they log in, they will see this label, you are assigned adventure race. Similarly, they wouldn't see this one, because this one is only assigned to the OELP drama group. So if that kid was in OELP drama group in Moodle, then they would see this and not this label. So we use the conditional things to help out as well. I'm just going to skip through just down to the end here. So what I've seen, lessons from this journey of Moodle, we've increased our Moodle use by so much, and we had BYOT as a first year this year, and that's really driven a lot of Moodle use as well. But what I can see is, whenever there's been a workflow gain or a real improvement to the teacher's sort of work, then that's been the one that's been the thing that's been able to really get them on board. And then once they're on board with that one thing, they can become sort of the leaders in that area. So you want to foster your evangelists too. You know, once somebody's worked out something with Gradebook, when I get a question about something similar with Gradebook, I tend to try to direct them to that person and try to build up that person as that expert. And so slowly you get pockets of people that are really using Moodle very well, and they're sort of spreading the word and growing that capacity for us to all learn and grow. When we started using Gradebook as a policy in high school, that really drove a lot more adoption in Moodle, because it made a lot more sense for you to have your assignments and things in Moodle, and you'd grade it in Moodle, and it would be automatically in your Gradebook. So making Gradebook a key or central feature policy within your school is a great way to also drive and move teachers into that Moodle space. And that works with the workflow too. I mean, it's the same as the first one. If you're saying that's policy, the reason is probably because it's freeing you up from a lot of double work. So if you weren't using the Moodle Gradebook, then you're probably grading, say, on paper or on a spreadsheet or on some system. How do you then get your grades out to your students? You've got that extra step of communicating it. In Moodle, you do it all in one place, and it's communicated for you already. So you do your grading, and that's automatically communicated out. So you're doing a workflow gain there too. Supporting Moodle through glitches. Yeah, there's often some glitches in Moodle. Currently, we're experiencing some glitches in that making changes to the gradebook when it's a fairly used gradebook. Those changes can be quite painfully slow right now. And I hope in Moodle 3.0, 3.1, that will change. But I've noticed that there's always been something in Moodle that doesn't always work exactly how you want it. But you know, slowly the Moodle community addresses that, and it gets there. So I'm hoping it's a 3-month wait, and maybe when we come in the new year, our gradebooks will be working a fair bit better. And finally, we want to really, you know, Moodle's flexibility. We're just the tip of the iceberg in that, you know, we're still fairly teacher-centered and fairly much, you know, here's the resources, go for it. There are assignments on there. We're using the gradebook, but we're not really empowering the students so well. So that's something that we'd like to move into as well. How do we empower the faculty to create, you know, conditional learning pathways, really individualize that experience, really look at that experience, the learner's experience, and build really engaging and meaningful courses that meet the students where they are. And empowering the students too. I mean, Moodle's fantastic in that you can allow a student to, you know, moderate a forum, to create things in Moodle. All those rights and privileges are able to be done on a very granular level, and we don't utilize that enough. So taking away, you know, empowering the students by passing over what the teacher would normally have done is a great way of really engaging the students in meaningful learning. And that's pretty much it. I'll open it to questions. I know I went through some of that stuff at pretty breakneck speed. Are there particular things that you want me to go over in more detail, or questions that you might have? Please feel free to put it in the chat. You can also turn on your microphone if you like to. We can just chat that way.
I'm just going to quickly jump in here in a second. Yeah, just and say thank you so much, Andrew. I think for quite a few people, a lot of this was completely new to them, and it was just amazing. A lot of the stuff is just so helpful, especially when you're trying to set something up in a school and encourage others. I think there's just brilliant advice that came through from there. For those who are listening, just don't forget you can also use the forums to speak to Andrew that way, and use any of the forums to ask any questions. Andrew's brilliant at helping people try and work out their Moodle problems, and we just really thank you once again, Andrew, for your time.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I noticed with the staff that I've been working very closely with here is often things can, you know, people come into a lot of sessions thinking, oh, cool, I'm going to get something that I'm going to use, you know, something that's really very helpful I'm going to use tomorrow. And I think sometimes, yeah, you know, just getting an overview or getting ideas of how Moodle can be used, or just seeing how other people have used it can really really inspire, or just, you know, it becomes something that's in the back of your head. You go, oh yeah, I remember you can do that. Might not know it just how to do that yet, but when that need arises, again, it comes back to that workflow thing. You know, if it's something that's necessary, something that's pressing, then, you know, if you know that it's possible, we'll probably be able to find a way to solve it. Yeah. Very happy to share at any time. Feel free. Yeah, that's my Twitter up on the screen there. Feel free to, you know, any questions anytime. Just fire the question away. Yeah.
I'm just going to finish the actual recording, but of course you're welcome to stay in the room. And I'm just going to start popping to the next room. Thanks again, Andrew. Bye.
No worries.